Hey guys, so in today's class, we are going to learn about something that we all love to do. And I mean it, we all love to do and we use it in our daily lives. So this class is going to be really helpful when it comes to written English and both spoken English. So let's get on with it. Great. Let us look at these example sentences. Ron's mango is sweet. Harry's mango is sweeter than Ron's. Hermione's mango is the sweetest of them all. What do you think we are doing here? Any guesses? Yes, you are right. We are comparing. Alright. So, if you look at the words sweet, sweeter and sweetest, all three of them are adjectives. But when they compare things, they change forms. And these adjectives, when they change form, this is what is known as degree of comparison. Let me write it down. They are known as degrees or adjectives of comparison. Comparison. So we have sweet here. Sweet is the positive degree of comparison. This degree denotes just the existence of the quality of being sweet. Okay, so this is the positive. Let's look at the word sweeter. Now the word sweeter is a comparative form because here the comparison is between Harry's mango and Ron's mango, and it denotes a higher degree of quality than the positive degree. So this is the comparative. Okay. Let's look at the next sentence. Hermione's mango is the sweetest. Sweetest is the superlative form of adjective. It denotes the highest degree of quality. So we have sweet, which is positive. We have sweeter, which is the comparative form of the adjective. And we have the sweetest, which is the superlative form. So how do we form comparative superlatives? Ever thought about it? Okay, this is how we do it. Well, mostly in one syllable words, adjectives are formed. Wait. What did I just say? One syllable words? What are one syllable words? Okay, so one syllable words is a unit of written and spoken English, and the best way to identify a syllable in the word is to count the number of vowels. Vowels are our letters A, E, I, O, U. Let me help you understand it better with the help of an example. Let's take the word hotel. How many vowels do we have in this particular word? O and I? That is correct. And that's why it's a two-syllable word. The first syllable is HL and the next it's ho and Estelle. Let's look at another word. Let's look at the word cat. How many vowels? Yes, only one vowel, and therefore this is a one-syllable words. Alright, so let's move on with the formation of comparatives and superlatives. So mostly one-syllable words, we form their comparative and superlative form by adding ER and EST to their positive form. Let's understand it better by looking at this chart. So we have the first word small, which is in the positive form. It becomes smaller in the comparative form and smallest in the superlative form. So do you see how we have added ER and EST to the positive form, which is small? Similarly, let's look at the second Example, brave, braver and bravest. So here in the word brave, which is in the positive form, the E is silent, and when that happens, we change it by just simply adding an ER and an EST. Another example of a similar word is nice. In the word nice, the letter E is silent, so the comparative becomes nicer and the superlative becomes nicest. Let's look at the next example, happy. So happy, the word happy ends with the letter Y, and to form the comparative form, we change the letter Y into an I and simply add an ER to it. So happy becomes happier and the superlative becomes happiest. Let's look at the next word, which is big. Now, if you look at this word big, it ends with a consonant, which is G, and it is preceded by a vowel sound. And whenever that happens, we simply double the consonant letter. So, big becomes bigger and the superlative becomes biggest. So, that is how we form comparatives and superlatives from the positive form by adding ER and EST when it comes to one syllable words and sometimes more than one syllable words. Now, let's just look at the other examples. So, we learned about how do we form comparatives and superlatives of one or two syllable words. But what do we do in case of more than two syllable words? Well, to form comparatives, we add more before the word, and to form superlatives, we form most before the word. Let's just understand better with the help of this grid. So, the positive form is beautiful, the comparative becomes more beautiful, and the superlative form becomes most beautiful. Let's just look at the second word, which is interesting, more interesting, most interesting. So, I would say the book that I am reading right now is interesting. This book is more interesting than the last book I read, and I think this is the most interesting book that I have ever read. So, there you have it, example sentences with the form of comparative and superlatives. The next word is difficult, more difficult and most difficult. So, now we understand how to form comparatives and superlatives of one or more syllable words. Next, let's just move on to the exceptions of these rules. So, we learnt about the rules of forming comparatives and superlatives when it comes to one syllable words or more than one syllable words. But then there are some exceptions to these rules. Let's look at the first exception, which is irregular adjectives. So, as the name suggests, these adjectives are formed irregularly. They are not formed by adding an ER or an EST or by adding a more or a most to form a superlative and to form a comparative and a superlative degree respectively. Let's look at a few of these examples. The first one is good, better, best. So, as you can see, the comparative and the superlative form is formed by a completely different word. So, let me make a sentence. Sam is a good student, but Ram is a better student than Sam, but Ron is the best student in class. You saw how I compared, the students with the help of the irregular adjectives here? Great. Let's look at the other examples. We have bad, worse, worst. We have far. So, for far has two forms. One is the regular, which is far, farther, farthest. And then it has an irregular form, which is far, further and furthest. Next we have late, later, latest. And then we have old, which has two forms like far. Old becomes older, oldest, and then old also becomes elder and eldest. Now let's move on to the second exception. Now there are few two-syllable words that take that take ER and EST And we can also add more and most while forming their comparatives and superlatives respectively. Let's look at a few of these words. The words are quiet, simple, friendly, lovely, lively. So let's understand this exception better with the help of these example sentences. My area is quieter than yours, and you can also use my area is more quiet than yours. You see how we use both the forms. We can use both the forms here, the ER and more. So to the positive, we've added an ER here, and we can also add more in front of this word. Great. So let's look at the third exception. Now there are certain one-syllable words where we do not form their comparatives and superlatives by adding an ER or an EST like we normally do. What we do in this case, we add a more or a most to these one-syllable words while forming their comparatives and their superlatives. Let's take a look at them. The words are ill, real, right, wrong, and fun. Let's take a look at an example. Swimming is more fun than jogging. So we won't say swimming is funner than jogging. We would add more to the one-syllable word funnier. This is the third exception. Now let's look at the fourth and the final exception, which is to use to and not than when we use certain comparatives. And these comparative words are superior, inferior, junior. Let's make an example sentence. I shouldn't feel inferior to her just because she is rich. So we shouldn't say I shouldn't feel inferior than her because she is rich. I should use the word to instead of than. So here are our 4 exceptions to the rules of forming comparatives and superlatives. Now let's just look at the common mistakes that students make while forming comparatives and superlatives. Now these are mistakes that I do not want you to make ever. Let's look at the first common mistake. Let's look at the sentence first. She is the nicer person I know. Is that correct? Are we comparing two things here? No, we are not. Then why are we using the comparative form? This should be she is the nicest person I know. Let's look at the second sentence. She is the more intelligent person I know. Again, we are not comparing two things or two persons here. We are talking about the whole group, that she is the most intelligent person I know. So, the first common mistake that students make is they use the comparative form instead of the superlative form. Alright, so make sure that you do not make these mistakes ever again. Now, let's just look at the second common mistakes that students make, which is they use more plus ER and most plus EST. Let's look at the example sentences to understand them better. He is more quicker than me. So, in the first sentence here, they have used the comparative form ER and also added a more to it. So, this is not needed. The sentence can be, he is more quick than me, or it can be, he is quicker than me. There is no need of this more here. Let's look at the second sentence. He is the most fastest runner in the class. Is this most really needed? Yes, you are right. It is not needed, because we know if we just delete this most, we know he is the fastest runner in the class. We do not need the most here and we do not need the more here. Now, let's move on to the third mistake that students often make. So, I haven't named the mistake yet. You all will name it for me. He is as tall as me. He is taller than me. He is taller as me. So, if you look at these words as and than, First, let's just understand when do we use as. We use as to denote similarity. So we use as to denote similarity. And we use than for comparison. So what we often do is that we use as instead of than and than instead of as. So the third common mistake is use of than instead of as and vice versa. So when I say he is as tall as me, I mean he is tall, I am tall. Both of us are tall and that is a similar quality. But when I say he is taller than me, in that case I mean that I am 5 feet and he is 6 feet. And let's look at it. He is taller as me. Now the word as is not used for comparison. So he is taller than me is correct. And so we have our third common mistake, which is using than and as interchangeably. So just make sure guys that you do not make these common mistakes ever again. So this brings us to the end of this chapter, Adjectives of Comparison. I hope you all found this helpful. Until next time, happy learning.